the model's in there, the juicy DIY workshop is in there. And then toward the end, I start talking about, well, how do you break up with collaborators? So I'm a big believer, and I think a lot of us are in relationships we should not be in, period. And a lot of us are in collaborative relationships that we should not be in. So in those situations where you have discretion, which is not always, a lot of, especially in the workplace, a lot of collaborations are, voluntold. You have to be doing them. But when you do have discretion, how do you get out of them when they're going poorly? How do you know when it's time to get out? And ultimately, I end the book by talking about how all of these principles, they're awesome in the workplace, and they're also related to our civic involvement, our engagement at church or places of worship, where anytime you have complicated people coming together trying to do amazing things, you've got collaboration, these principles are at play.
Hi and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project Manager podcast for Sunday the 27th of March. This is your host, Nigel Creaser. And today we've got the second part of Cancel, not the 27th, 26th.
So let me ask, if you had to, I know you have so many conversations obviously around project management, what would you say are maybe the
odd one,
the two or three biggest frustrations that project and there's a reason for my question. So if you had to say, here are the two or three biggest frustrations project managers encounter, what would you say they are?
So this is good, isn't it? Talking on behalf of a community of several million people.
We should start from my perspective with all the reasonable like caveats in place. Yeah,
from my experience, and I'm kind of being led by the audience a little bit from the question a little bit. I'm thinking of, I think it is about engagement, if you like, from stakeholders, senior stakeholders. So that's number one. So getting that engagement properly, so that getting the sponsorship and the input. This is what kind of from my conversations and from what I hear and see is that's a frustration people have. Is just that go and do the project and then someone disappears. The other side of it is resources is always a problem. Having the people to do the work when you need it, and it kind of immediately with the conversation, I'm thinking to the thing of going to an area and saying, I need that person from the finance department to work on this project, I need that person from the marketing department, I need that person from IT to this, putting them all together, and it's kind of getting them when you need them at the right time, and then not being deprioritised on something else or reprioritised on something else. And then I suppose the other side of it would be, it's kind of something popped in my head and it popped out just as quickly then.
That happens to me all the time. Yeah. It's the rate of change.
Now, as project managers, we're supposed to be comfortable with change. And I think we are, as long as we're making it happen to people. When it's happening to us, or to our organisation and on to us, we're the same as everybody else. We rail against it in many ways, unless we thought of it. We embrace some of it a bit better than others, I think, but there is still that thing of the rate of change in society now as well. I think all of us are struggling with that, is the fact there's so much change going on at the same time, and it's kind of, hang on a minute, let's stop a minute. Do you know what, I'm going to lean back again. Susie Palmer-True's book, Because Change Doesn't Need to Be Shit. The Everyday
Great title.
Change Management Playbook. There's an element in that. So I saw her post something earlier this week, and my brain's going again. Where was my train of thought there? It was change. It was the amount of change that we have. Yeah, it's about organisations going, right, let's do all this change. And actually the point is kind of, you don't need to do it all at once. as an organisation, if you aren't sitting there going, let's do that first, settle it. Do that first, settle it. Do that first, settle it. Or limit, because and it's not the case of, well, we're not going to be able to change quickly enough. But I think that the problem you get is if you try and change everything all at once, down the line you get poor adoption, poor leverage and poor execution of all of those changes. So there might be a new system that comes in and it's absolutely brilliant, but because people haven't got the time to absorb it and get to using it and understand it, it never gets used to its full potential.
Yeah,
and I've got some very good examples of that I've seen.
And all of those, so the lens I'm listening to you with is what's relational about that. Like the idea of the resources, to be able to go and talk to somebody and say, can I get your finance person on this project for a hot minute, a month, whatever it's going to be. What groundwork have I set with that person in advance to create trust and for them to know that I'm not the one who's going to come ask them for somebody because I'm being lazy. It's because it's really going to be what's important to the necessary addition to this. How careful have I been in creating kind of the groundwork for the project to begin with in terms of exploring with the community, what could we do, figuring out with others, what should we do, creating a plan that involves assessment, not just of the key outcomes and metrics and whatnot, but also to what extent has this shared work? To what extent are we meeting the needs, the goals, the interest of these different parties? Because of course people aren't going to buy in if they can't see how if we haven't made visible how what we're doing is actually in service to their needs, and without being assumptive about that we somehow know it's in their best interest, but have we taken the time to have those conversations, to have that dialogue, to create that relationship so we can act and share resources on behalf of that shared interest. And that's incredibly time intensive. But if you want durable change, and you want to be able to convince people, not in a strong arm sort of way, but to motivate people to invest their time, their attention, their effort when there's so many competing demands, you got to invest that. You got to invest all of that effort up front. And along the way, as you said too, it's not like it's a one and done sort of thing.
No, because sometimes you can get 6 months down a change and people are sitting there going, why are we doing this again? This has changed now. Is it still relevant? And actually, that's something you should be doing and should be having that conversation.
Absolutely.
And thinking about it. And I think the thing I pick out there, and again, it kind of echoing back to a lot of the conversations I've been having on the training I've been going through, is trust. And this is like manager-employee thing. Trust with your colleagues and trust with other areas. And go into an area that, if every time you go to an area going, we need John on Tuesday or Mary on Wednesday, because we need to get this bit of the project done and they're the only ones who know it and they've got to be there. And if you go back every time with every project that you're ever delivering with that same demand with a 5-day notice, 2-day notice, that trust, every time you walk through the door they're going to go, here we go. It's Creaser again asking, not planning ahead. We're project managers meant to plan ahead. And there are always instances and situations where short-term demands drive that. But if you don't build that trust, if you don't work with those people to make sure they know when you're going to need stuff, and build that relationship, then you're never going to be in a good position, because they're planning to do other things that they've got on their list of things to do. It's easy.
And if
it's
the only
scenario,
time,
isn't it?
yeah. I was going to say, if the only time they're seeing you is when you're showing up to request something new or something else, then then as soon as they see you, they bristle and are shutting down, and the defenses are coming up, as opposed to, oh, there's Nigel. I really like Nigel. How, Nigel's always so thoughtful about our interest and feeding information back to us when we need it and advocating for our interest when he's in those meetings. I wonder what Nigel's up to. I want to be helpful now. I mean, it's such a different disposition, but it's not something that just pops up and disappears. It's an ongoing relationship building process. Yeah.
And that's the thing with everything, it's always a relationship. In everything, every ask, every collaboration is a relationship, whether it be from an organisation, because that's an interesting thing from a collaboration point of view. You've got individuals collaborating at the the base level. Then you've got that organisational collaboration. Now, that macro of an organisation, of all the people that make up it, that, as we know from different political things, group mind can be a horrible beast compared to the individuals who make up that group mind. And do you see a difference at that organisational collaboration, because obviously you've been experiencing it, and that individual sort of departmental or team collaboration? Because it's like there's a bigger dynamic, isn't it? The bigger the organisation goes up, it's like collaboration over COVID and stuff like that between the world. Which
right, exactly, like that government and that government. But yeah, so what's interesting at the organizational level is, even if we look at the meaning of the word organization, it comes from the Greek word for organs, or instruments. And so ideally, all of the departments, the divisions, the people are individual organs within an organization working together harmoniously to give life to this thing, to play with the metaphor. But in reality, what we often see is that, it could be the sales team and the marketing team don't get along, or that they're somehow in competition with each other, or production is in competition with engineering and design. And that makes conceptually zero sense. Humanistically, because we're humans, it does make sense, because it's about how we frame us versus them, how we frame the shared, in psychology we call it the superordinate goal, so the thing that sits atop all of those parts. And one of the things I find fascinating, and I would love to get your take on this, is when we talk about how poor collaboration undermines the success of an organization. It all sounds, like it makes sense. Like, oh, people are not working together well, and you're hurting your timelines, and information's not flowing, all that sort of thing. The pain of poor collaboration, though, is experienced at the individual level, where, gosh, I have to put up with Nigel not having done his stuff again, or Deb keeps creating these fires for everyone, and I don't trust her to do her work ahead, or she shows up to these meetings and has done a half-assed job on the pre-work such that we can't actually make good time or good use of our time in the meeting. So you and I are feeling that pain of, say, me being a poor collaborator locally. That's not necessarily visible up at those executive echelons of the organization, yet the outcomes that they're really worried about, the bottom lines, the timelines, things like that, are absolutely impacted by what's happening at this micro level. So, one of the things I think about in my work, and I don't have the answers, this is genuinely like a question I'm mulling over, is how do we help across the organization make the case for investing in these relationships, that it's not just because our employees are going to feel valued and they're going to go home to their families at night and have, they're not going to be so stressed that their dinner table conversation is about this junky collaboration that they're in at work and how horrible Nigel's team is or something like that. They're waking up at 2:00 in the morning, dreading having to go to work the next day because of interpersonal tensions. How do we make the case that those individual experiences, that pain, is absolutely a concern across the organization?
Yeah, it's a fact that's a big ask, isn't it? And I can see where trying to think how to put it really. If you've got those, despite the poor collaboration, organisations can succeed, and it's because of the squishy humans who have an investment or a fear even, or something that means that despite that they get on with it and they get it done. They want to get their bonus paycheck, so they do that extra mile and they can do that extra mile, but as you say, the organisations pay for that in a potentially worn out, burnt out, disengaged individual who eventually leaves, but they don't see it, do they? Because that person leaving, why is that? It's because the collaboration isn't key, because they're having to fill in holes. But where's that? Do you see it? They're the relationships that have we done. And I think it's a real hard conundrum to fix it and to be able to see the visibility, because you can look at the surface. I'm not sure, like, I'm not going to start talking Maslow with a psychologist and motivations and all that, because you out-talk me on all of those, I'm sure. But his whole hierarchy of needs, it's kind of you kind of try to address some of those as an organisation, they're looking at, oh yeah, you get your pool table and you get your table tennis bats and whatever. Actually, it's much lower down in the pyramid that where the problem is not there. It's kind of, I'm being worked too hard. I'm having to do stuff. I'm having to fill in for someone else. It's not about whether it's a nice environment, whether you've got these things going on. It's because this person, at the base level, the basic relationship stuff is the problem. Which, so that everything above that is invisible until you've set. It's that thing, isn't it? Unless you've got shelter and food and feel safe, you can't move on to those next levels. I remember doing this in my business studies course, and I found it fascinating. That whole thing, it blew me away when I thought, oh. And it was always really interesting field.
A metaphor just popped up into my head. It's like storing your fireworks in the wet sauna all year, and then being surprised that they didn't light when it was time for the United States to be the 4th of July, like some sort of celebration where you would use fireworks. Like, oh, well, these must have been bad fireworks. It's like, yeah, there you go. Yeah, and it's like, no, it's not that they're bad fireworks. It's that you didn't treat them well. You know, like they can't do their job if you store them in the wet sauna.
Yeah, they become ineffective. Now, I'm just looking, we're going to be coming up on time shortly. We've only got a few more minutes, and we haven't really talked about your book. And
we should probably do that. Yeah, let's do it.
It's probably worth doing it. And I don't know if you've got a copy anywhere around for those on the video. For those on the audio, Deb's got 3 of them in the background of her video. So there, it's Collabor Hate. Just tell us a little bit about where that came from, where the ideas, what people can learn out of that, and kind of what 1 or 2 things maybe that are in there that you would say to people that they could do actionable now that would help them with their collaboration in their work environment.
Yeah, great. So the full title is Collabor Hate: How to Build Incredible Workplace or Collaborative Relationships at Work. Oh my God, I just screwed up How to Build Incredible Collaborative Relationships at Work, even if you'd rather work alone. And I put the H in parentheses as a bit of a whisper. To say, I think we need to talk about the hard stuff about working together. We need to be honest with ourselves and each other that this whole playing together thing, it's really hard sometimes, and sometimes it really, really sucks. And until we honor that and unpack, well, why is that? What is so hard about it? We have very little hope, I think, of creating better collaborations that are more fulfilling, more productive, less painful, better for the organization, and so on. And so what I've done in the book is it's basically a psychology of close relationships class applied to workplace relationships and collaborations in particular. And a couple of the gems in there. So first of all, this is not necessarily a gem. I'm excited about it. I did some original data collection with 1,100 people who are all employed full time to ask them about their thoughts and feelings around workplace collaboration. So that those data are in there. But 2 of the gems that I wanted to point out are, one, there's a model self-referentially called the Mashek matrix, which is a little bit funny in a book about collaboration that I just named it after myself. But I thought, hey, IP is important, so we're going to go with it. But the Mashek matrix offers a simple model for thinking about how to take a relationship from Collabor Hate to Collabor Great, and what really is involved. What are the dials you can turn to get there? And one of the juicy tidbits there is that those 2 dimensions that I look at are relationship quality. In other words, how we feel about the other person. Just, is it subjectively a good or bad positive feeling about this person? And also interdependence, or the extent to which my outcomes are connected to your behaviors and vice versa. And sometimes it's good to have interdependence, and sometimes it's bad. And trying to help people think through how you would change those 2 dials of interdependence and relationship quality to really get those deep collaborative relationships that sparkle, that are a joy to be in, that are productive, where you're doing amazing things together, way beyond what any of you could have done alone. So that's one of the gems. And I should say, if people, are you going to have show notes? Can I give you a link?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I'll send you a link for people.
You can stick a link in, yeah.
Awesome. So I'll send you a link for a nice handout that describes this model. So that's one of the gems. The other thing that I'm really excited. Oh yeah, and the other real goodie that's in there is the really detailed instructions on a DIY workshop that I use with clients to help people move from, to figure out which levers to throw to move relationships from collaborate to collaborate. So, I wish I could remember off the top. I think I ended up with 9 strategies to help with relationship quality and 11 strategies to help with interdependence. And all of these can be played with in different, whether we're talking about I'm the only one who's involved here, meaning I'm the only one who realizes there's a problem, what can I do? To also thinking about, okay, what can our team do together? Also helping people think about, if I'm an organizational leader, what could I do to help people on relationship quality and interdependence? So the model's in there, the juicy DIY workshop is in there. And then toward the end, I start talking about, well, how do you break up with collaborators? So I'm a big believer, and I think a lot of us are in relationships we should not be in, period. And a lot of us are in collaborative relationships that we should not be in. So in those situations where you have discretion, which is not always, a lot of, especially in the workplace, a lot of collaborations are, voluntold. You have to be doing them. But when you do have discretion, how do you get out of them when they're going poorly? How do you know when it's time to get out? And ultimately, I end the book by talking about how all of these principles, they're awesome in the workplace, and they're also related to our civic involvement, our engagement at church or places of worship, where anytime you have complicated people coming together trying to do amazing things, you've got collaboration, these principles are at play.
Yeah, it's interesting, having seen the comment you said about the civic stuff, seeing volunteer organisations and how getting people in volunteer organisations to work together off their own back, you have no people power, no position power, which some people, when they haven't got the position power, are like, how do I persuade people to do stuff when I'm not in position? And I love the example. I know you guys have it in the States, but I don't know if you see the same sort of thing. When I sit there watching, I've stopped watching it now. I've managed to stop watching The Apprentice, and you have someone who becomes the project manager, which as you can imagine makes my teeth. It's like scraping nails down a blackboard when I see them. They're not project managers; they're just leading a team. And they kind of go, well, I'm the project manager, so you need to do this. And it's kind of right, as soon as you've pulled that lever, you've immediately put yourself in a vulnerable position when you've got a group of volunteers. If people are and in that scenario, they are essentially volunteering to support you in that or not. In most civic organisations, you'll have the same sort of thing, don't you? There's a level of volunteerism in there.
I'll share a quick story. I was going to just share a quick story where when my kiddo was in preschool, I wanted to be the super involved mom who wanted to help out with the fundraisers and stuff. I totally was hand up. I wanted to be a part of this, and the parent coordinator, also a volunteer, also a mom. We all there was like maybe 5 or 6 of us who got together to figure out how are we going to create a fun fair where, take over the parking lot of the preschool, and we'll set up some booths, and we need, somebody needs to call, get some donations, just all the usual stuff. And, I raised my hand, I volunteered for an activity, I said, I'm going to do this. I went, I worked my butt off, I got all the, did X, Y, and Z, I came back to the meeting. She had done all of the same things. And I was deflated. First of all, I was pissed because I felt like my time had been wasted. And I was like, I was very clear. I said I was going to do this. Why didn't you believe me when I said I was going to do it? And her answer was because most people don't do what they say they're going to do, which is fair enough. And I totally bristled because I'm the person who does what she says she's going to do. And did I lift a finger after that? Nope. I mean, now looking back, I see all of these dynamics at play where I dug my heels and I was like, well, screw it. I'm not going to volunteer for anything. You're going to just go do it for me anyway. And just the way that we are, again, human behaviors. I was feeling ouch. It was a violation of how I saw myself, and I reacted poorly in that situation. And it makes for a good story now. So...
That's good. Ideal, and it demonstrates it, doesn't it? So we're just coming up to the top of the hour. thank you very much for giving me so much time, and it's fascinating chat. It's a subject that I think we could sit here for another hour, maybe another hour, to talk about and delve down in those. And I'm guessing I would suggest that the guys grab a copy of the book and they'll be able to delve down a bit better. If people want to get in touch with you, hear more about it, grab a copy of the book, what's the best thing to do?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is at debmashek.com or collaborhate.com, and I have all of my social media links there, and really love being in conversation with people about these topics. So look me up, set up a call,
Brilliant.
Let's chat. I would love to hear your stories.
So, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on the show, and you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's nighttime there, so sleep
I
well.
will. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Deb. I know I did. And we need to collaborate more. And we know it's hard. So think about it. How do you do it? Next week, I have the return of Mr. John Quigley, where John and I talk about varying things about supply chain. So click subscribe, click your alerts, all that stuff on whatever service you're on to make sure you get the download as soon as it's available. Look after yourself. Bye now. So this is my final wrap up. Every week you're going to hear this, you're going to get bored of it, but you can always click next podcast if so. If you have enjoyed it, if you listen to this podcast to the end of this show and you think that was great, I'd love to be able to help Nige out. There are loads of ways you can do it. The first and obvious way is to share the podcast, send it out to people. If you know colleagues and friends who'd benefit from it, you think they'd enjoy it, just send them the link. Grab one of the links, or send them to www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts. That's www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts, and that will push them over to a Linktree link, and it's got all of the different ways they can consume the podcast. If you are feeling generous and have a big bag of cash, you could grab a copy of one of my books. Obviously, they're available in all the usual places, in print and digital. Again, jump on the website, www.nigelcreaser.com/shop, and that will give you a list of all the different ways that you can contribute and grab copies of the book. Also got links to all my guests' books on there as well, where I get a little bit of a kickback from them. If you are of a sporting mind, I have a number through doing some of my judo and running antics. I've managed to secure a few affiliate links and affiliates there as well. So in there, somewhere in the sponsors page, there's links to those as well. So clicking onto those and grabbing if you're looking to get super fit, then that would be fabulous as well, and I get a little kickback from those. I have a Patreon account. It's patreon.com/sundaylunchpm. So again, you can ping something in there, buy me a coffee or whatever. And finally, obviously the most important is coming back, listen again, because the more of you that come back, the more visibility I get, because there's more times that it's downloaded and all the SEO works and things like that. So yeah, that's it. So if you can help me out, I would be much appreciated. If you can't, don't worry about it. Thank you very much. Cheers now. Bye. Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.